I wanted to see that immediately after that fight, but now time has kind of ran its course. I don't want to see Errol. I just don't want to see Errol get done like that again. That's all. And I believe Errol Spence is a generational talent, great fighter.
The sport is in chaos again just when it seemed like Terence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. had gone their separate ways. Talks for a rematch are suddenly back on the table as of April 2025. And this time, they are not just rumors. Negotiations are happening behind the scenes. Both fighters are talking about it. And tensions are rising fast, with Crawford already challenging Spence's position in boxing. Let's catch you up.
But you gonna knock my first?
Because I don't want us personally. We talking about what we want to see. I don't want to see it because I know what it's gonna look like. The same as it looked last time.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do.
Errol Spence wasn't the same.
What was wrong with him?
He looked slow. He looked he looked sluggish.
Why?
I can't tell you. I wasn't in camp.
At the division, he dominated for his entire career. All of a sudden, when it came time for this fight, he looked different. Why?
I wasn't in camp with him. I can't tell you. I don't know if his body finally broke down from being at 147 for too long.
Crawford and Spence have never been the type to hold back. And as the talks start turning into reality, they are getting louder, taking shots at each other in interviews, social media. And now, even during a heated live exchange, Spence, who's been out of the ring since his brutal loss to Crawford in 2023, is more fired up than ever. He is pushing hard for this rematch, claiming that the first fight didn't tell the full story that he was drained at 147 pounds, and that the weight cut took everything out of him. Crawford, however, is reminding everyone what happened the last time they stepped in the ring, how he knocked Spence down 3 times, and how the fight wasn't even close. But Spence refuses to accept that narrative. He is still convinced that at 154 pounds, everything changes.
Fight can't be made, but weight can be used as an excuse and sort of say, I don't feel like it. Like, I'll go up to for this guy, but not another guy. So, that's sort of the spirit. The language is very, more precise and very definitive. But the concept is, out of fairness, is, let's not be selective.
Then this entire rematch situation has been a roller coaster since the moment Spence exercised a rematch clause after their first fight. When Crawford destroyed him in July 2023, Spence wasted no time triggering the clause, determined to get another shot. But the contract was clear unless either fighter submitted written notice stating they couldn't make 147 pounds. The rematch would take place at welterweight again. Spence never officially filed that notice, but he and his team kept insisting that the fight should happen at 154. Crawford wasn't having it. He had no reason to give Spence an advantage after beating him so decisively. That's where the standoff began.
Same question, but I want your reaction. Is a Errol Spence rematch on the table still, or?
Nah.
All right, we're gonna wrap that. I'm trying to tell you.
Then Spence's health issues slowed everything down. Eye surgery, the recovery, the doubts about whether he could even return to form. While Spence was dealing with all that, Crawford moved on, won another title at 154 by beating Israel Madrimov, and shut down any talk of a rematch. When reporters asked him about it, he barely acknowledged the possibility. He said, dismissing it completely at that moment. It looked like the rivalry was over for good.
I truly believe that the fight would have went that way regardless, because stylistically, the fundamentals on that level, Crawford is just outclasses Errol Spence in every single category.
But now things are shifting fast. Crawford is no longer shutting the door completely. Spence is ramping up the pressure, calling him out every chance. He gets most fans are saying Spence deserves another shot, that the weight cut really did affect him, that it wasn't the real Spence in the ring that night. Others are calling that an excuse, saying he got exposed, and a rematch would look the same no matter what weight class it happens in.
54 or 47, but I'm sure he probably gonna push the weight up, but there's no gonna be no change in the decision. The performance still is gonna be the same. It might be even a little bit better. So he might want to watch out before he activate the rematch clause.
And now Spence, though, is making this personal. He is openly accusing Crawford of ducking him or trying to walk away from the contract, of acting like the fight never existed just because he got the upper hand the first time. Crawford never won. To let someone dictate the narrative is firing right back. He is telling Spence he had his chance, that he got dominated, that he didn't even look like he belonged in the ring with him.
Let's go! As you can see, man, breaking news. Errol Spence then activated that rematch clause to fight Terence again, right? Let's be honest, we all saw the fight. Crawford beat boogers out that boy.
However, and now in real time, both fighters are making it clear that they are ready to go to war again. Spence, despite everything, is still confident. He is saying that Crawford has never fought him at full strength, that he wasn't himself in that first fight, and that he's going to prove everyone wrong. Crawford, on the other hand, is almost laughing at the idea that anything will be different to him. Spence has always overrated his style, is too predictable, and if God got in their ring again, he would beat him. Even faster the second time, the trash talk is getting more intense by the day, and with both men finally admitting that talks are happening, this fight is looking more real than ever.
I mean, that's a good win. I'm still a fan. I hope he do well. But like, once it got to the point where I moved up in weight and I'm in the same weight as Spence, it's just like, oh man, you ain't fighting nobody. You this, you that, you this, you that. So now they trying to blemish my accomplishment just to boost him up. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna do that, because I can retire right now and be in the Hall of Fame. He couldn't. Everything that I've accomplished, he's still trying to accomplish. I don't want to sound like I'm hating on him. I honestly don't know if he make it to the Hall of Fame with the accolades that he didn't got right now.
However, this trash talk is already causing some waves in the sport. Terence Crawford and Shakur Stevenson have always been tight, their bond built on years of respect, mentorship, and shared ambitions, but now their views on Errol Spence Jr.'s legacy are splitting them into opposite corners. Crawford, never one to sugarcoat his opinions, has ignited a firestorm by outright dismissing Spence's Hall of Fame credentials. Meanwhile, Stevenson, one of the sport's brightest young champions, isn't having it. The disagreement is stirring heated debates among fans, analysts, and even fighters, with opinions clashing over what truly defines a Hall of Fame career.
You discredit one of the best wins on your resume, it starts to make people look at your resume with a question mark. Terence Bud Crawford.
Crawford set this controversy in motion during an appearance on the Pound for Pound podcast with Kamaru Usman and Henry Cejudo. He didn't hesitate. When the topic of Spence's legacy came up in his view, Spence doesn't make the cut. His reasoning: Spence only fought in one division. While he acknowledged Spence's accomplishments, unifying 3 welterweight titles, defeating top-tier opponents like Sean Porter, Danny Garcia, and your Dennis. Ugas Crawford was firm in his belief that it wasn't enough to. Him a Hall of Famer is someone who conquers multiple weight classes, builds an undeniable resume, and proves their greatness beyond a single division.
Terence went on Pound for Pound podcast, and he said that Errol Spence will not be a Hall of Famer. Can you just give me your thoughts on that?
I disagree.
You disagree? Why do you disagree?
I feel as though Errol had a great career. If it wasn't for Bud, he would have been undisputed. So he went and got every belt one by one by one. I think he's a Hall of Famer.
That statement itself is interesting to the whole boxing community. Crawford didn't just critique Spence's career, he effectively shut the door on any discussion of his place in boxing history. And this is why everyone in the sport is getting back at him, with fans and experts calling him out for downplaying Spence's achievements. Some see it as unnecessary disrespect. Others feel Crawford is just being honest. But the most surprising pushback didn't come from analysts or former fighters. It came from Shakur Stevenson, one of Crawford's closest friends. When asked about Crawford's comments during an interview with Best Women's Boxing Show, Stevenson was quick to disagree. "I feel as though Errol had a great career," he said, standing firm in his stance. "If it wasn't for Bud, he would have been undisputed. So he went and got every belt one by one by one. I think he's a Hall of Famer." His words cut through the narrative Crawford was trying to push, offering a different perspective, one that recognized Spence's dominance before their fight, and what could have been if Crawford hadn't been in his way.
I think Errol's run was long enough, no Diddy, to automatically put him in the Hall of Fame. He was a very good fighter. If there was a Hall of Very Good, he would be going into that. But Hall of Fame, no. If you were in charge of writing a Hall of Fame speech for Errol Spence, and I was in charge of writing a Hall of Fame speech for Bud Crawford, my Hall of Fame speech, listing my credentials, listing my accolades for Bud Crawford, would sound a lot better than your speech for Errol Spence, bro. Yeah, I don't think unifying and holding 3 titles automatically push you in the Hall of Fame.
Stevenson's stance highlights an ongoing struggle in boxing's Hall of Fame. Debates: do accomplishments across multiple divisions determine greatness? Or can a fighter cement their legacy by ruling a single weight class? Stevenson clearly believes that Spence's dominance at 147 was enough, but Crawford isn't budging for him being a unified champion in one division. Even with Spence's level of success isn't enough for immortality.
It's up to him. He gave me that opportunity to fight him. It's only right that if that's what he want to do, I'll give it back to him. Outside of him, I was definitely looking for that Jamel Charlo fight, but they just stripped him for the WBO. So now it's going to be kind of hard, becoming a 3-weight world champion if you don't come back and, fight Tim Tszyu and be successful after his fight with Canelo.
The tension between Crawford and Stevenson might not be a full-blown rift, but it's certainly creating waves their friendship has always been built on mutual respect. But this is one of the rare times they publicly disagree on something major. Stevenson isn't just another fighter giving his opinion. He's someone who has spent years learning from Crawford, training with him, and looking up to him. So for him to go against Crawford's take so directly speaks volumes. Also raises questions about how the relationship might be affected by this in the long run.
Say Crawford is a hell of a fighter, but I don't really respect his resume. What? Other than fighting you.
Crawford?
You know what I'm saying? I don't really respect his resume like that.
Adding fuel to the Fire Hall of Fame discussions are notoriously political, and Spence's case is already sparking division among boxing's inner circle. Some are arguing that Spence's ability to bounce back from adversity, surviving a life-threatening car crash, and still defending his titles makes his resume even more Hall of Fame worthy. Others believe Crawford is setting a dangerous precedent by discrediting single division champions, as many legends built their entire legacies in one weight class.
Airwaves of YouTube. Let me make a plea right now to Terence Crawford. I understand you just beat him. You beat him thoroughly. You're the undisputed welterweight champion of the world, the WBO, the WBA, the WBC, the IBF titles, but you hugged him after the fight for a reason. I am making a plea to Terence Crawford, even if you elect to give Errol Spence Jr. a rematch. Please do not do this for at least a year. Please don't do that.
And there's another layer to this debate, Crawford's history, with Spence. Some are saying his comments aren't just about Hall of Fame standards, they're personal. That Crawford is trying to erase Spence's legacy because of their rivalry to make sure history remembers him as a superior fighter. If Spence gets into Hall of Fame, it forces the world to acknowledge that he was an all-time great, even if Crawford beat him, and Crawford might not be ready to accept.
Like Errol can't take, I think he's the bigger, stronger fighter, but Errol methodically marches down and breaks you down. I don't know if that can be done to Crawford. I think that Crawford is a marvelous boxer. I think he's got the temperament of a champion that really wants to do damage and be spectacular. He can fight conventional. He can go southpaw. He brought the power with him. And I think the biggest thing is that Errol Spence might have gave him a little bit too much time to match.
Meanwhile, Spence hasn't responded publicly to Crawford's comments, but of course it's safe to assume that he's not happy about it. He has always taken pride in what he has accomplished in boxing, and being dismissed so easily by Crawford is only adding fuel to his competitive fire. There are even talks that Spence might use this as extra motivation for their potential rematch, wanting to prove that he is not just a great fighter, but an all-time great, one worthy of the Hall of Fame no matter what. Crawford says, X.
I'll support y'all fighter. Let's come together, make this event a success. Instead of everybody saying every time we get together, it's always shooting and violence. Everybody know Team Crawford. Y'all know I get active.
But that's the thing, Crawford doesn't care about earning his way up the weight classes. He doesn't care about taking on the real challenges in those divisions. He just wants the biggest name, the biggest fight, the biggest payday. And when this is all said and done, when the Canelo fight is over, does anyone actually believe he's staying at super middleweight? Of course not. He'll take his money, take his loss, because that's what's most likely coming, and then figure out his next move. That's not a Hall of Fame mindset. That's a
this is what I think about resumes, and especially when it comes to these two fighters specifically, because they got a lot of the common opponents.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But the day that they fought these opponents is what's uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can pick who you want to pick, and I fought him and he had I broke both eyes, and then you fought all this and that. Bottom line is, a lot of fighters aren't who they are on Tuesday. They're not that same fighter on Saturday.
You are absolutely
That's the
right.
bottom line.
Crawford's, and this isn't the first time Crawford has taken the easy road to the bank. For years, people questioned his resume at 147. They asked why he wasn't fighting the best names sooner. They asked why he stayed under the top-ranked banner for so long, when all the big
Bud said weight classes for a reason. But then Bud and his team heard the TBV show. Then it's like, yo, you know what? Bud, we could throw the towel in. We gonna shimmy all the way to the bank. We gonna drop this 9 figures in the bank. We got you. Do we believe we could beat them? Yeah. What other opportunity in life are you gonna get to make 100 and something million?
And he adding fuel to the Fire Hall of Fame discussions are notoriously political, and Spence's case is already sparking division among boxing's inner circle. Some are arguing that Spence's ability to bounce back from adversity, surviving a life-threatening car crash, and still defending his titles makes his resume even more Hall of Fame worthy. Others believe Crawford is setting a dangerous precedent by discrediting single division champions, as many legends built their entire legacies in one weight class.